Question 1. If a property in Texas is sold without a disclosure of its location in a floodplain, what legal action can the buyer take after discovering this fact post-purchase? A. Sue for damages. B. Request a property reassessment. C. Apply for flood insurance. D. No action, as it's buyer's responsibility. Answer. A. Sue for damages. Explanation. In Texas, failure to disclose a property's location in a floodplain can be grounds for the buyer to sue for damages, as this is a significant material fact that should have been disclosed by the seller. Question 2. What are the legal consequences for a Texas real estate agent who fails to disclose a dual agency? A. License suspension. B. Mandatory ethics training. C. Financial penalties. D. No consequences if the transaction completes successfully. Answer. A. License suspension. Explanation. Failing to disclose a dual agency can result in serious legal consequences for a Texas real estate agent, including the suspension of their license, as it is a breach of fiduciary duty and ethical standards. Question 3. In Texas, how does community property law affect the sale of a property owned by a married couple when one spouse is unavailable or unwilling to sign the sales agreement? A. The sale can proceed with one spouse's signature. B. The property cannot be sold without both signatures. C. A court order is required to proceed with the sale. D. The spouse must be legally declared absent. Answer. B. The property cannot be sold without both signatures. Explanation. Under Texas community property law, both spouses must agree to sell a property owned during the marriage. If one spouse is unavailable or unwilling, the sale cannot legally proceed without both signatures. Question 4. Describe a scenario where a property in Texas could be sold under the doctrine of adverse possession. A. A tenant living in a property for 5 years without paying rent. B. Someone occupying and using an abandoned property openly for 10 years. C. A property left vacant for a year with no apparent owner. D. Buying a property at a tax sale. Answer. B. Someone occupying and using an abandoned property openly for 10 years. Explanation. In Texas, adverse possession allows someone to claim ownership of a property if they have occupied and used it openly and continuously for a specific period, typically 10 years, without the legal owner's permission. Question 5. What is the impact of Texas homestead laws on the foreclosure process for properties with defaulted mortgages? A. Foreclosure is not allowed on homestead properties. B. The foreclosure process is expedited. C. Homestead properties have specific protections that delay foreclosure. D. Homestead laws have no impact on foreclosure. Answer. C. Homestead properties have specific protections that delay foreclosure. Explanation. Texas homestead laws provide certain protections for homeowners, making the foreclosure process more challenging and offering the homeowner additional time and legal options to prevent foreclosure. Question 6. How can a buyer in Texas legally back out of a purchase contract after the option period has expired? A. By forfeiting the earnest money. B. Through a mutual agreement with the seller. C. By finding a legal defect in the contract. D. They cannot legally back out. Answer. C. By finding a legal defect in the contract. Explanation. Once the option period has expired, a buyer's options to back out of a contract are limited. One legal way is to find a defect in the contract that makes it void or voidable. Question 7. Under what circumstances can a Texas property owner legally refuse to sell their property to a government entity invoking eminent domain? A. If the offer is below market value. B. If the property has sentimental value. C. If the property is not being used for public purposes. D. A property owner cannot refuse an eminent domain claim. Answer. C. If the property is not being used for public purposes. Explanation. In Texas, a property owner can legally challenge an eminent domain claim if they can prove that the property is not being taken for legitimate public use. Question 8. What are the implications of Texas's Deceptive Trade Practices Act, DTPA, for a real estate transaction involving a knowingly concealed property defect? A. Mandatory disclosure of the defect. B. The seller may face legal action and damages. C. The property must be sold as is. D. The buyer must accept the defect. Answer. B. The seller may face legal action and damages. Explanation. Under the DTPA, if a seller knowingly conceals a property defect in Texas, they can face legal action and be liable for damages to the buyer. Question 9. Explain the legal distinction between fixture and personal property in a Texas real estate transaction. A. Fixtures are always included in the sale. Personal property is not. B. Personal property becomes a fixture when sold. C. Fixtures are movable. Personal property is not. D. Personal property can become a fixture if attached to the property. Answer. D. Personal property can become a fixture if attached to the property. Explanation. In Texas real estate, a fixture is personal property that has been attached to land or a building and becomes part of the real property, whereas personal property is movable and not permanently attached. Question 10. In Texas, what are the specific requirements for a property to qualify for an agricultural tax exemption? A. The property must be over 10 acres. B. The property must be used primarily for agricultural purposes. C. The owner must reside on the property. D. The property must be in a rural area. Answer. B. The property must be used primarily for agricultural purposes. Explanation. To qualify for an agricultural tax exemption in Texas, the property must be primarily used for agricultural purposes, such as farming, ranching, or wildlife management. Question 11. How does the right of first refusal in a lease agreement impact the sale of a commercial property in Texas? A. The tenant has the first opportunity to purchase the property. B. The property cannot be sold until the lease expires. C. The tenant must vacate the property before the sale. D. It has no impact on the sale. Answer. A. The tenant has the first opportunity to purchase the property. Explanation. In Texas, if a lease agreement includes a right of first refusal, it means the tenant has the first opportunity to purchase the property before it can be sold to someone else. Question 12. What obligations does a Texas real estate agent have if they discover undisclosed easements after a property listing agreement is signed? A. No obligation to disclose as the agreement is already signed. B. To disclose the easements to potential buyers immediately. C. Only disclose if asked by the buyer. E. Terminate the listing agreement. Answer. B. Disclose the easements to potential buyers immediately. Explanation. A Texas real estate agent is obligated to disclose any material facts, such as undisclosed easements, to potential buyers as soon as they are discovered, regardless of when the listing agreement was signed. Question 13. Describe a situation in which a mechanic's line could complicate the sale of a property in Texas. A. The property is under a lease agreement. B. The property has been recently renovated. C. A contractor has not been paid for work done on the property. D. The property is being sold as is. Answer. C. A contractor has not been paid for work done on the property. Explanation. A mechanic's line can complicate the sale of a property in Texas if a contractor or supplier places a line on the property due to unpaid work or materials, potentially delaying or obstructing the sale. Question 14. In Texas, how does the severability of water rights affect the sale of a large rural property? A. Water rights cannot be separated from the property. B. The seller can retain water rights separately from the land. C. The buyer must negotiate water rights separately. D. Water rights are always included with the land sale. Answer. B. The seller can retain water rights separately from the land. Explanation. In Texas, water rights can be severed from the land, meaning the seller of a large rural property can choose to retain the water rights separately or sell them along with the property. Question 15. What unique challenges arise when selling a property in Texas that is part of a condominium regime compared to a single-family home? A. Condominiums cannot be sold to individuals. B. There are no challenges. The process is the same. C. The seller must obtain approval from the condominium association. D. Additional disclosures regarding the condominium association and fees are required. Answer. D. Additional disclosures regarding the condominium association and fees are required. Explanation. When selling a property that is part of a condominium regime in Texas, the seller faces unique challenges, such as the need for additional disclosures about the condominium association, its rules, and any associated fees. Question 16. Explain the legal implications of selling a Texas property with an active lease that includes a no-sale clause. A. The property cannot be sold until the lease expires. B. The lease becomes void upon the sale of the property. C. The buyer must honor the lease but can renegotiate the terms. D. The sale can proceed, but the seller may face legal action from the tenant. Answer. D. The sale can proceed, but the seller may face legal action from the tenant. Explanation. Selling a Texas property with an active lease that includes a no-sale clause can legally proceed, but the seller might face legal action from the tenant for breaching the lease terms. Question 17. How might the statute of frauds in Texas affect a verbal agreement to sell a piece of real estate? A. The verbal agreement is binding. B. The verbal agreement is not enforceable. C. The agreement is valid for 30 days. D. The agreement must be notarized to be valid. Answer. B. The verbal agreement is not enforceable. Explanation. Under the statute of frauds in Texas, a verbal agreement to sell real estate is not enforceable. Real estate sales contracts must be in writing to be legally binding. Question 18. What are the potential legal repercussions for a Texas real estate broker who fails to supervise their agents adequately? A. Mandatory retraining of the agents. B. License revocation or suspension. C. A fine paid to the Texas Real Estate Commission. D. No repercussions if no harm is done. Answer. B. License revocation or suspension. Explanation. A Texas real estate broker who fails to adequately supervise their agents can face serious legal repercussions, including the revocation or suspension of their broker license. Question 19. Under what conditions can a Texas real estate sales contract be legally voided due to a mistake or misrepresentation? A. If the buyer changes their mind. B. If there is a mutual mistake or intentional misrepresentation of a material fact. C. If the property value decreases before closing. D. If the interest rates increase. Answer. B. If there is a mutual mistake or intentional misrepresentation of a material fact. Explanation. A Texas real estate sales contract can be legally voided if there is a mutual mistake or intentional misrepresentation of a material fact that significantly affects the transaction. Question 20. How can a Texas property owner legally contest a property tax appraisal deemed excessively high? A. By not paying the property tax. B. By filing a formal protest with the local appraisal district. C. By suing the tax assessor. D. By requesting a reassessment after 2 years. Answer. B. By filing a formal protest with the local appraisal district. Explanation. In Texas, a property owner can legally contest a property tax appraisal they believe is excessively high by filing a formal protest with the local appraisal district, following specific procedures and deadlines. Question 21. In Texas, what legal steps must a landlord follow to evict a tenant for non-payment of rent, and how does this process change if the property is under foreclosure? A. Provide a 3-day notice to vacate. Foreclosure does not change the process. B. Immediate eviction without notice. Foreclosure speeds up the process. C. Provide a 30-day notice to vacate. Foreclosure extends the notice period. D. Eviction is not allowed for non-payment if the property is under foreclosure. Answer. A. Provide a 3-day notice to vacate. Foreclosure does not change the process. Explanation. In Texas, a landlord must provide a tenant with a 3-day notice to vacate for non-payment of rent. The foreclosure of the property does not alter this eviction process. Question 22. Explain the implications for a Texas real estate agent if they accidentally disclose confidential information about their client during a transaction. A. The agent could face legal action for breach of confidentiality. B. The transaction is automatically voided. C. The agent is required to provide financial compensation to the client. D. No implications as the disclosure was accidental. Answer. A. The agent could face legal action for breach of confidentiality. Explanation. Accidental disclosure of confidential information by a Texas real estate agent can lead to legal action for breach of confidentiality and fiduciary duty. Question 23. Scenario. A Texas property owner sells a portion of their land, which includes access to a shared well. What rights and responsibilities do both the seller and buyer have regarding the well's use and maintenance? A. The buyer gains full rights and responsibilities for the well. B. The seller retains all rights and responsibilities. C. Both parties share equal rights and responsibilities for the well. D. Rights and responsibilities are determined by local water authorities. Answer. C. Both parties share equal rights and responsibilities for the well. Explanation. In such a scenario, both the seller and buyer typically share equal rights and responsibilities regarding the use and maintenance of the shared well. Question 24. What are the specific legal requirements for a valid real estate contract in Texas, and how does an option contract differ? A. Written agreement, consideration, competent parties. Option contract requires additional earnest money. B. Verbal agreement, disclosure of property defects. Option contract is legally binding without these requirements. C. Written agreement, mutual consent, legal purpose. Option contract allows buyer to purchase within a specific period. D. Public notarization, legal counsel review. Option contract does not require notarization. Answer. C. Written agreement, mutual consent, legal purpose. Option contract allows buyer to purchase within a specific period. Explanation. A valid real estate contract in Texas requires a written agreement, mutual consent, and legal purpose. An option contract differs as it gives the buyer the right, but not the obligation, to purchase the property within a specific time frame. Question 25. Describe the legal consequences in Texas if a real estate agent misrepresents the zoning classification of a property they are selling. A. Mandatory correction of the misrepresentation. B. License suspension or revocation. C. Required attendance in additional training courses. D. Financial compensation to the buyer. Answer. B. License suspension or revocation. Explanation. Misrepresenting the zoning classification of a property in Texas can lead to serious consequences for a real estate agent, including license suspension or revocation. Question 26. In Texas, under what conditions can a buyer legally withdraw from a real estate purchase after the inspection period has ended due to environmental concerns? A. If the concerns significantly affect the property's value. B. The buyer cannot legally withdraw after the inspection period. C. If the environmental concerns arise from a newly discovered natural disaster. D. Any environmental concern is grounds for legal withdrawal. Answer. A. If the concerns significantly affect the property's value. Explanation. In Texas, a buyer can legally withdraw from a real estate purchase after the inspection period if newly discovered environmental concerns significantly affect the property's value or habitability. Question 27. How does the conversion of a residential property to a rental property affect homestead exemption status in Texas? A. The homestead exemption is automatically revoked. B. The exemption remains as long as the owner maintains the property as their domicile. C. The exemption status does not change. D. The property must be reassessed for tax purposes. Answer B. The exemption remains as long as the owner maintains the property as their domicile. Explanation. In Texas, converting a residential property to a rental property does not affect the homestead exemption as long as the owner still considers the property their primary domicile. Question 28. Scenario. A Texas property is sold with an undisclosed termite infestation. What recourse does the buyer have after closing the sale? A. The buyer can sue for rescission of the contract. B. The buyer must accept the property as is. C. The buyer can demand a refund for the cost of termite treatment. D. The buyer can report the seller to the Texas Real Estate Commission. Answer. A. The buyer can sue for rescission of the contract. Explanation. In Texas, if a buyer discovers an undisclosed termite infestation after closing, they may have legal grounds to sue for rescission of the contract or for damages. Question 29. What legal issues can arise in Texas when selling a property that has a non-permitted addition or renovation? A. The property cannot be legally sold. B. The seller may face penalties or be required to bring the addition up to code. C. The buyer assumes responsibility for the non-permitted work. D. No issues arise as long as the buyer is informed. Answer. B. The seller may face penalties or be required to bring the addition up to code. Explanation. Selling a property in Texas with non-permitted additions or renovations can result in legal issues, including penalties for the seller or the requirement to modify the work to meet code requirements. Question 30. Explain the legal implications for a Texas property owner who installs permit fixtures on leased land. A. The fixtures become the property of the landowner. B. The property owner must remove the fixtures upon lease termination. C. The property owner can charge the landowner for the value of the fixtures. D. The fixtures remain the property of the owner and must be compensated by the landowner. Answer. A. The fixtures become the property of the landowner. Explanation. In Texas, when permit fixtures are installed on leased land, they typically become part of the land and thus the property of the landowner, unless otherwise specified in the lease agreement. Question 31. In Texas, how can a boundary dispute affect the sale of a residential property, and what resolution mechanisms are available? A. The dispute must be resolved before the sale can proceed. B. The buyer inherits the dispute and responsibility for resolution. C. The sale proceeds, but the price is reduced. D. The dispute is mediated by the Texas Real Estate Commission. Answer. A. The dispute must be resolved before the sale can proceed. Explanation. A boundary dispute can impede the sale of a residential property in Texas. Resolution mechanisms include mediation, arbitration, or legal action to determine the correct boundary lines. Question 32. What are the legal responsibilities of a Texas real estate broker regarding the segregation and handling of client funds? A. Broker has no responsibility for client funds. B. Funds must be kept in a separate trust or escrow account. C. Funds can be commingled with the broker's personal funds. D. Funds should be immediately transferred to the seller. Answer. B. Funds must be kept in a separate trust or escrow account. Explanation. A Texas real estate broker is legally required to segregate client funds by keeping them in a separate trust or escrow account, ensuring their protection and proper management. Question 33. Scenario. A Texas homeowner installs solar panels on their home. How does this affect the property's valuation for tax purposes? A. The property's value increases significantly. B. The value remains unchanged. C. The property may be eligible for a tax exemption or reduction. D. The property is reclassified as commercial. Answer: C. The property may be eligible for a tax exemption or reduction. Explanation: installing solar panels on a home in Texas may make the property eligible for certain tax exemptions or reductions, recognizing the investment in renewable energy. Question 34. Under what circumstances can the Texas Real Estate Commission revoke a real estate agent's license for misconduct? A. Only if the agent is convicted of a felony. B. For any ethical violation, regardless of severity. C. For severe misconduct, including fraud or dishonesty. D. The Commission cannot revoke licenses. Answer: C. For severe misconduct, including fraud or dishonesty. Explanation: the Texas Real Estate Commission can revoke a real estate agent's license for severe misconduct, such as fraud, dishonesty, or other serious violations of professional ethics. Question 35. Describe the potential legal pitfalls in Texas for a real estate agent who practices net listing. A. The listing is considered unethical and illegal. B. The agent could be sued for breach of fiduciary duty. C. The agent might not receive any commission. D. The agent has to disclose the net listing publicly. Answer: A. The listing is considered unethical and illegal. Explanation: net listing is considered unethical and illegal in Texas as it creates a conflict of interest by allowing the agent to keep any amount over a set price as their commission. Question 36. How does a life estate in Texas affect the sale of a property, and what rights does the life tenant have? A. The property cannot be sold until the life tenant's death. B. The life tenant must consent to the sale. C. The sale is void if the life tenant disagrees. D. The life tenant has the right to occupy the property until death, regardless of the sale. Answer: D. The life tenant has the right to occupy the property until death, regardless of the sale. Explanation: in Texas, a life estate allows the life tenant the right to occupy or use the property until their death. The property can be sold, but the buyer must honor the life tenant's rights. Question 37. In Texas, what are the legal implications of selling a property that is part of a homeowners association, HOA, without disclosing the HOA obligations? A. The sale is automatically void. B. The seller could be liable for undisclosed HOA fees and obligations. C. The buyer assumes all HOA responsibilities. D. There are no legal implications. Answer: B. The seller could be liable for undisclosed HOA fees and obligations. Explanation: in Texas, failing to disclose HOA obligations and fees when selling a property can result in the seller being held liable for any undisclosed costs. Question 38. Scenario: a Texas property has a historical landmark designation. What restrictions might this impose on a new owner wanting to renovate? A. The owner must maintain the property's historical integrity. B. There are no restrictions on renovations. C. The owner can only renovate the interior. D. Renovations require approval from the Texas Real Estate Commission. Answer: A. The owner must maintain the property's historical integrity. Explanation: owning a historical landmark in Texas imposes restrictions on renovations. The owner must maintain the property's historical integrity and may need approval for changes from historical societies or local authorities. Question 39. Explain how community property laws in Texas affect the sale of a property owned by a married couple where one spouse has filed for bankruptcy. A. The property cannot be sold without the bankruptcy trustee's approval. B. The sale proceeds as normal. C. Only the bankrupt spouse's share is affected. D. The property is automatically exempt from bankruptcy. Answer: A. The property cannot be sold without the bankruptcy trustee's approval. Explanation. In Texas, under community property laws, if one spouse files for bankruptcy, the property cannot be sold without approval from the bankruptcy trustee, as the property is considered part of the bankruptcy estate. Question 40. What legal issues might arise in Texas if a real estate agent represents both the buyer and seller in a transaction without proper disclosure and consent? A. The transaction is deemed void. B. The agent faces no legal issues if the transaction completes successfully. C. The agent could be subject to legal action for breach of fiduciary duty. D. The agent must donate their commission to charity. Answer. C. The agent could be subject to legal action for breach of fiduciary duty. Explanation. If a Texas real estate agent represents both parties in a transaction without proper disclosure and consent, they could face legal action for breach of fiduciary duty and violating ethical standards. Question 41. What legal complications can arise in Texas when selling a property with an existing lien that the current owner was unaware of? A. The property cannot be legally sold until the lien is resolved. B. The lien transfers to the new owner without any legal issues. C. The seller must pay double the lien amount. D. No complications arise if the seller was unaware of the lien. Answer. A. The property cannot be legally sold until the lien is resolved. Explanation. In Texas, if there is an existing lien on a property, legal complications can arise during its sale. The property cannot be legally transferred to a new owner until the lien is resolved or cleared. Question 42. In Texas, if a real estate agent unknowingly sells a house with a hidden defect, what are the potential legal repercussions for the agent and the seller? A. Both may face legal action for non-disclosure. B. Only the seller faces legal repercussions. C. The agent's license may be revoked. D. There are no repercussions if the defect was unknown. Answer. A. Both may face legal action for non-disclosure. Explanation. In Texas, if a house with a hidden defect is sold, both the real estate agent and the seller may face legal action for non-disclosure, even if they were unaware of the defect. Question 43. Scenario. A Texas homeowner sells their property, which has a restrictive covenant limiting the construction of fences. The buyer is unaware of this covenant and plans to build a fence. What are the legal implications? A. The buyer can legally build the fence. B. The buyer may face legal action for violating the covenant. C. The seller is responsible for informing the buyer post-sale. D. Restrictive covenants are not enforceable in Texas. Answer. B. The buyer may face legal action for violating the covenant. Explanation. In Texas, if a buyer is unaware of a restrictive covenant and violates it, they may face legal action. It is the seller's responsibility to disclose such covenants before the sale. Question 44. Explain the consequences in Texas if a buyer discovers after closing that the square footage of a property was misrepresented. A. The buyer can demand a price adjustment. B. The sale contract is automatically voided. C. The buyer may seek legal action for misrepresentation. D. No consequences as the sale is final. Answer. C. The buyer may seek legal action for misrepresentation. Explanation. In Texas, if a buyer discovers a misrepresentation of square footage after closing, they may have grounds for legal action against the seller or agent for misrepresentation. Question 45. In Texas, how can the rights of a tenant be affected if the rental property they occupy is sold to a new owner? A. The tenant must vacate the property immediately. B. The tenant's lease agreement is terminated. C. The new owner must honor the existing lease agreement. D. The tenant's rent automatically increases. Answer. C. The new owner must honor the existing lease agreement. Explanation. In Texas, when a rental property is sold, the new owner is legally required to honor the existing lease agreement with the tenant until its expiration. Question 46. What legal challenges might a Texas real estate agent face when selling a property that was previously used for illegal activities unknown to the seller? A. The agent must ensure the property is rezoned. B. Legal challenges related to non-disclosure of the property's history. C. The agent is required to report the activities to the police. D. No challenges if the seller was unaware of the activities. Answer: B. Legal challenges related to non-disclosure of the property's history. Explanation: in Texas, if a property previously used for illegal activities is sold, the real estate agent might face legal challenges, particularly if the property's history is not disclosed to the buyer. Question 47. Scenario: a Texas property owner builds a structure that inadvertently crosses over into a neighbor's property. What legal actions can the neighbor take? A. Demand the immediate removal of the structure. B. Require payment for the land used. C. Sue for property damage. D. Take no action as it was inadvertent. Answer: A. Demand the immediate removal of the structure. Explanation: in Texas, if a property owner builds a structure that encroaches on a neighbor's land, the neighbor can legally demand the removal of the structure from their property. Question 48. How does a Texas court typically handle a dispute over earnest money when a real estate transaction fails to close? A. The buyer automatically forfeits the earnest money. B. The earnest money is returned to the buyer. C. The court decides based on the terms of the contract. D. The earnest money is split between the buyer and seller. Answer: C. The court decides based on the terms of the contract. Explanation: in Texas, if there is a dispute over earnest money and a real estate transaction fails to close, the court will typically decide based on the specific terms and conditions outlined in the contract. Question 49. In Texas, what are the legal ramifications for a real estate agent who fails to advise a client about the tax implications of a property transaction? A. The agent may face a lawsuit for negligence. B. Mandatory continuing education in tax law. C. Loss of commission from the transaction. D. There are no legal ramifications. Answer: A. The agent may face a lawsuit for negligence. Explanation: in Texas, a real estate agent who fails to inform a client about the tax implications of a property transaction could face legal action for professional negligence or breach of fiduciary duty. Question 50. Scenario: a Texas property listed for sale has an undisclosed sinkhole issue that is discovered by the buyer after entering into a contract. What recourse does the buyer have? A. The buyer must accept the property as is. B. The buyer can renegotiate the sale price. C. The buyer can rescind the contract and seek damages. D. The buyer is entitled to a full refund of the earnest money. Answer: C. The buyer can rescind the contract and seek damages. Explanation: in Texas, if a buyer discovers an undisclosed sinkhole issue after entering into a contract, they may have the legal right to rescind the contract and potentially seek damages due to non-disclosure of a material fact.